All right, so in the last section, what we did is we looked at how we can use just Liferay's GUI to go ahead and provide translations for our different users. Okay, so we can have translation teams come in. They can provide translations for the pages. They can provide translations for the content. And we can go ahead and even modify the configuration of our sites to make sure that the appropriate default languages are available and selected. Okay. In this section here, what we're going to do is we're just going to discuss how you can provide some advanced uses of localization as well through some of the FreeMarker templates that we discussed in an earlier section. Okay, we won't have any hands-on for this, so if this is something that you are not interested in, it's not going to be your responsibility to maybe work in the code. You can feel free to sort of fast forward through this video. Otherwise, if you are interested in the kinds of things you can do, feel free to stick around, and we're going to just briefly discuss how we can do this in Liferay. Okay. So as I mentioned in previous sections, we have our web content templates and we have our application display templates. Okay. Those are two ways that we can add code to basically control the presentation of either web content or some of our other assets on the platform. Okay. What you can do in FreeMarker is you can do things like set variables and take advantage of Liferay's API. Okay. The power of FreeMarker is that it's an HTML markup language that allows us to reference Java objects, which, if you're familiar with Liferay being a Java app, that's really great news. It allows us a lot of flexibility. Okay. So we can do things like add variables. We can do things like add if statements, and so on and so forth. So this is just a basic example in our slides of a FreeMarker template. We have some variables at the top that we're using to assign some things, and then we have a basic breakdown of an if-else statement. Okay, now this is for a content template because we're using that getData method to get the information from our structures, but this gives you an idea of the kinds of things you can do. Okay, now what you can do is you can take advantage of the geocoder, which would allow us to access information about where the user is coming from, what kind of device they're using, what their IP address is, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, and you also have the ability to take advantage of Liferay's API that allows us to identify language selected for a user. Okay. So for example, in this example here, we're using some local services to be able to access information about content, okay, and documents, all right, and also the selected language for the user. So we can see that assigned selected language down there where we're getting the display language, we're getting the locale, okay. Okay, so what we can do here is we can say if the locale is German or Spanish or Japanese, go ahead and display these items. Okay, we actually use this on Liferay.com. So if you're interested, you can go and look at some of those use cases. And if we were to change the language, the use cases would actually change based on the language selected. Okay. Now this requires some additional work as well. We're using things like categories to also categorize which kinds of use cases are for Germany, Japan, or the Americas. And then we go ahead and use some of this code in our templates to identify those languages and change the display of the use cases to be relevant to those who are actually coming to the site and looking to get more information about how people are using Liferay in their region. Okay? All right. Now, something else that is worth keeping in mind here, this is true for both front-end developers as well as the content team, or those responsible for creating the templates with the content team, is in order to access some of this information, we need to actually unrestrict what's called the serviceLocator. So the serviceLocator is an API that allows us to get some database information, okay, at a sort of a high level. And it is restricted by default because in some cases security needs to be tightened, and we don't want our template developers to access some of that database information. It could be user information, page information, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. If you want to have a more advanced use of the FreeMarker templates that allows us to access specifically user languages and things like that, that we can use to determine how content is displayed, we can just go ahead and turn the serviceLocator restriction off. Okay. Now this could be done through a portal.ext.properties by your admins, or the server administrators can go ahead and go into the system settings, okay, and they can go ahead and just remove the serviceLocator from the restricted variables for FreeMarker. Okay. By doing this, they will give the FreeMarker developers the ability to access that information and change what kind of content displays in, let's say, an asset publisher ADT, for example, based on things like region or language, or even device if they wanted to, or anything along those lines. Okay, so for more advanced localization, you can also work within the FreeMarker templates to be able to be more specific about who can view what kind of content based on things like region or language. Okay. All right, so keep that in mind. Those FreeMarker templates are very powerful. Again, we're not going to go into too much detail here. We're going to focus on just working with Liferay's content management system out of the box. But for those of you who would be working on FreeMarker templates or who are interested in looking into FreeMarker and providing some of these options, this is a possibility for you to use as well. And you want to make sure that that service locator is available for you to access that kind of information. All right, in the next set of videos, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at some of our new search options in Liferay 7.1. Okay, so stick around, and the next thing we'll do together is go through some of those search tools.